Good morning. This is Karen from newclevelandradio.net. And today I am talking to Alex Norton, who is up in my favorite part of the world called Saratoga Springs, New York. And a big shout out to my sister in law, Terry Lynn. She posted a picture of Alex on her wonderful vehicle that she uses to deliver smiles and happiness that comes with flowers and plants. And I love your cap. Obviously,
Oh, thank
lots
you.
of flowers on that as well. So, Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, what made you decide that, you know, being in the flower industry, so to speak, or plant industry is something that you really wanted to do?
So this has been kind of I don't know, a dream of mine for a while. I have always been a gardener, um, really into houseplants. Well, I should say just recently got into houseplants. I've always killed houseplants, but outside I've done very well for years, even when I wasn't supposed to have gardens when I lived in an apartment. um, it's kind of something that's been in me for a long time. My mom always had a garden along our little white picket fence, and my grandmothers were houseplant queens, and even my great grandmother and my grandfather, who actually was a colonel in the army. Before that, he was a florist, and
Oh,
he
wow.
ended up doing all of the flowers for my parents' wedding. He went to Farmingdale University for horticulture and agriculture, and then ended up in the Army for 30 plus years, but still always maintain that creative side and plant loving side. So that kind of was passed down to me. And yeah, it's just been kind of buried deep for a while, and it came out last year.
Came out along with the pandemic.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so starting a business at that time, what did, what obstacles did you face?
Well, I was home, like most people, for a while there, before I went back to. I have a 9 to 5 job during the wintertime. I'm a ski boot fitter and salesperson at a local ski shop called Alpine Sport Shop. And so during the summertime, I'm off, and um, again, I plants and perennials and flowers have always been there for me. And it was kind of my way of dealing with a lot of what was going on last
Sure,
year,
absolutely.
and still going on. So it was my peace, and I would go outside and get my hands in the dirt, and it would just make me feel a little more grounded and feel a little more in control of my surroundings. So that was really the catalyst for it.
You know, I had heard for many, many years that when you get your hands dirty in the soil, it really is like an awakening to your whole body. And as I mentioned to you in an email, um, back in the late 70s, early 80s, I started a plantscape business. I had no money, no support, and I was newly divorced. But there was something about interior plants that I just loved. And so I started reading up on them. Again, this is before the true internet. And, you know, I felt so good going into somebody's office or home and explaining why this planter or this tree or these flowers are going to make a difference in your attitude, your personality, and how your customers react. And people thought I was crazy. And it was like I was the happiest that I could be for a little over 2 years doing this. Um, and I didn't mind getting dirt under my fingernails. I just come home and wash it out. Um, and when people said to me, "Well, do you really feel good about this?" Yeah, because you're keeping things alive and you're growing things and um, you're back with nature.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you were growing plants on your patio. Um, I have a patio. It's all ivy right now, and I'm leaving it that way because it looks pretty and I don't have to get out there and dig. And I can't get down on my hands and knees anymore. So that's a good reason. Um, but what made you then decide during the pandemic when things were basically closed down, people weren't really leaving their homes, and everybody was having difficulty with their finances? And I heard this from some very wealthy people as well as people who just make it day to day. So how could you sell your business to them?
Well, I tell you, that is a difficult thing. But there's something about flowers that just speak to people. And, it's not, well, it may be a luxury. Um, it's something that people connect with, and it doesn't seem that far-fetched. It's not something crazy. You're not going out and buying a new sports car.
Right, exactly.
It's something that brings people joy, and reconnects them with the outdoors and with nature and nature's beauty, because it's unbelievable what you can find in nature. The flowers that I have for this season, there are some that I'm just like, I can't believe that's real. There are some that have just especially the tulips, because that's what's just past our
Right.
tulip season. And some of these parrot tulips that have these wild feather look to them, they look fake. They look like something someone created. They're so abstract and different. And I think that speaks to people. And no matter what's going on, that's flowers are always something to make people smile.
Well, it's funny because we've been living in this condo now going on 14 years. And my neighbor, who we share a courtyard with, um, I'm very trimmed with green plants on my side because, again, it's easy and they come up beautiful. And thanks to my composting, they are bigger and bigger every year. So that's a good thing for me. But my neighbor across the way, she's into wildflowers, and
Mhm.
sometimes the wildflowers are pure weeds. But as they start growing, like they were a couple weeks ago, um, it looked trashy. And for many years, I wanted to just say something to her, but then I realized, you know, as soon as they start to blossom, whatever she has out there, they blossom all summer and into the fall. And so she's got all the color on her side, and I have all the greenery on my side.
Yeah.
And it's a nice balance. Um, you know, I wouldn't know a wildflower from an actual weed, and I'm sure I have some of those in my yard. Uh, so when you're planting these flowers and
Mhm.
cultivating them, um, how early in the spring do you have to get started so that you actually have an abundance?
So I actually started in early February. So there are certain varieties that have a very long growth period. One in particular, which is like the bane of my existence this year, is Lizianthus. And it has a ridiculously long growth period. So you have to start them super early to try and get them to bloom, especially in this area, in time for your first frost. So that I started those eucalyptus, and a couple others, the long range ones, back in, I think it was February 10th.
So did you have
So
to start those indoors?
yes,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So we
So
have a greenhouse, a small one, and we have a germination station in our basement, which is a grow rack, with lights, heat mats, so I can pretty much control temperature, humidity, everything on that. So that's where everything starts, and then eventually moves out to the greenhouse, and then from the greenhouse out into the field.
absolutely. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I saw this post about you on this adorable bike. So tell me about your delivery service.
Yes. So it's really funny. This actually, I had a dream about it. I wanted to do something different. I see people with delivery vans in town, and um, I've always loved cruiser bikes. They've always been something I always wanted, but we don't live in the middle of town, so we're on
Sure.
the outskirts. So I thought about doing a trike, and it's called Bouquets by Bike, and we have a tricycle with a big crate on the back that carries 4 buckets, so I can carry about 2 to 3 bouquets per bucket. So I can get quite a few in there.
Right.
And I have a subscription service during the summer, and we bike to deliver.
So for those of you who are listening and are not familiar with Saratoga Springs, it is, I think, the nicest community I've ever been to. You can be a stranger walking down either Main Street or a side street, and people say hello. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you don't see that. Well, you may see it in some places, but in our area, uh, I live right next to the national park, and I go walking, and other people come walking through our complex because of that. And I'm always saying hi, but people don't respond. They must think that I'm the weirdest person in the world. But that's what I love about Saratoga Springs is that you ride your bikes, you walk around. Everybody seems to know each other, and even if not by name, there's some sort of recognition.
Oh, for sure.
So obviously, when you decided to do this last year, did you just do it word of mouth initially? Is that how you got started?
Yes. So it was word of mouth, and also Instagram and Facebook. That has been my go-to. I do have a website, hummingbirdsblooms.com, um, and you can get more info there. But Facebook and Instagram really have been my go-to. I have dabbled in TikTok, but I'm on like the borderline of too old for TikTok. So it's tough for me to navigate that one.
Yeah, I've tried myself, and I was told by my youngest son, who's 30, that mom, you just don't have it. So drop it. It was like, okay, I will. If Yeah, I can use all the other forms of social media, and that works well. But hey, riding that bike on for TikTok, that would be pretty awesome.
It's I have some ideas for videos. I'm gonna try. All right, I'm considered an elder millennial, so I don't know. I think they actually called us geriatric millennials in the last week or so. So I'm really feeling that. That feels really great.
That's sort of scary. I wonder what that means for me. So I hang around with very young people on the weekend. I think they're that generation that comes after yours, like Generation X or whatever they're called. And I don't know what they're talking about half the time. It's like, as long as you understand the training I'm providing you, that's all that's important. I don't have to understand you. So tell me about some of the flowers that are normally or more frequently requested.
So around here, sunflowers are a big one. Roses again are another. I mean, everybody loves a rose. We started growing garden roses this year, and they take a couple years to become established. Like most perennials, for you to take cuttings, you really should wait a couple years. Luckily, I've had perennial gardens for a while now, so I do have some established. But roses, sunflowers, Lizianthus, anemones, and ranunculus, and peonies. So those tend to be the ones that people go for. They're very focal flowers. Oh, and dahlias. Dahlias are a big one. And again, the focal flower for sure, everybody knows those names.
Right.
But there are definitely some filler flowers too that people request. Bachelor's buttons, snapdragons, stock. Um, we have the gamut. We've got quite a variety this year. I went a little overboard on the seed purchases.
Well, but the seeds can hold out for next year too, can't they? Okay.
Yes. So if they're stored properly, you can normally get 2 to 3 good viable years, and more and longer too. But for farming, you definitely want to stay within that time frame just so that you have good germination rates.
So, in addition to what you're doing during the summer with your flowers, which I love, are you educating people as well? Because I mean, like a lot of these flowers, I'm sure if I saw them, I would know them, but I don't know them by name. Um, and there are some people who may want to like start planting things.
Mhm.
Is that something that you help others with as well?
Occasionally. So I have a lot of Facebook friends and Instagram friends that have been asking for advice lately. So I've definitely dabbled in that a little bit. My husband and I have talked about starting a YouTube channel and kind of doing like basic videos on basic plant care, things like that. I don't know if people will be interested, but why not?
Well, you know what? You'd be surprised how interested they would be. And that's why I was asking because um, everybody says, just go to YouTube and you'll find something on what you want. And I would love to know about certain flowers that once they're cut and they're in a vase, which are the ones that typically last longer than others. My husband always wants to buy me flowers, and I love him dearly for saying it. But usually, you know, he'll buy them at the grocery store, and
Mhm.
he doesn't look to see. He assumes they're fresh. Let's just put it that way. And some by the next day, they're dead, no matter what you do to them. And some can last me weeks and weeks and weeks. And so I tell him if it's going to only last a day, I don't want them because I don't like looking at dead flowers. And yes, I do put them in my mulch. So in case my sister-in-law is listening, I do put them in my mulch. But um, you know, that's something that when you give somebody a gift of flowers, you want them to appreciate them for more than just receiving them. So is
Mhm.
there any one or two that you can recommend?
So vase life is a big thing with being a flower farmer. You want to grow things that have an extended vase life. Um, Bachelor's buttons, they last a week or more. Your more woody stemmed things
Okay.
tend to last longer. They tend to take up water a little bit or hold water a little bit better. But um, ooh, best vase life. Tulips, they've been really good for us. We harvest tulips as annuals. So we
Okay.
grow them and we actually pull the bulb, everything out when we harvest them. And I actually just forgot a bunch in the fridge for about 3 weeks. And I cut the bulb off and they perked back up. As soon as you put them in water, they perked back up. They had their food source for that long period of time. So they were okay. But yeah, I'm blanking right now
That's
on
okay.
the long vase life ones. I could tell you all the ones that have short vase life and you want to avoid. But sunflowers is another one that has a long vase life. As long as you get something that doesn't drop pollen, because those you never want yellow all over your tablecloth
Right.
or anything. So,
So have you
but
ever heard of anybody who's allergic to sunflowers?
I I mean, sunflowers specifically, no. But I know, any kind of pollen can bother
Right.
people, so I can see that being an issue. But not specifically sunflowers.
Well, we found out yesterday that my youngest son is definitely allergic to sunflowers.
Oh
He had a reaction yesterday, and it was a combination. His manager on her desk had a vase of sunflowers, and a
no.
couple of times he walked by it, and he kept feeling his throat tightening up, and he thought, "This is weird." Okay, well then he had lunch yesterday, and he's into organic foods, and he had a mac and cheese which was made with rice, um, but it had sunflower oil in it,
Oh my gosh.
and his throat just totally was closing up on
Oh,
him, um, and none of us would have thought anything of it because I've had sunflowers in the house before, and
mhm.
you know maybe he would sneeze or something, but it could be from anything. And we found out
Wow.
yesterday that yes, it is a common allergy.
Oh
Um,
my gosh.
but as long as you aren't like face to face with it all the time, so he knows he can't eat it, anything made with sunflower. Um, and he was told by his doctor that if he were basically like 6 feet apart from it, he wouldn't actually be breathing in everything from that sunflower.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah. And we all love sunflowers in this house. So I said, well,
Oh.
they will stay out in the garden. And then he can walk around them. Um, so
Aw.
just throwing that out there because one of the things I have learned, and I learned when I was doing my plant business, is that even if you have an allergy to some flowers or the pollen from the flowers, there are ways of putting them in the house and having them not affect you. And so that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the beauty and the color.
Absolutely.
So you're at the beginning of your season now. So
Yes. In the
um,
middle of it.
so you're riding that bike a lot.
Yes.
And
Yes.
do you have deliveries every day or?
No, so we actually just finished prepping the field. So all of our annuals are about to go out in the field over the next 2 days. We have, I think, close to 1,500 plants to plant.
Wow.
So it should be a fun couple days. And I do have a 3-year-old, so
Well, I'm sure your 3-year-old enjoys digging in the dirt.
yes. When it's in his pile that he can dig, that's
Got it.
fine. But yeah, he was digging in the dahlia bed the other day, and I'm like, no. But yes, he likes to help if it's actual help that he can give.
Well, he's got to learn the business soon, so that, he can keep it going throughout
Fingers
the year.
crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your little one's name?
His name is Alden. He'll be 3 on Sunday.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Oh, that's wonderful.
Mhm.
So again, the name of the business is,
Hummingbirds blooms.
and we can find your website when we Google it. So we'll make sure that
Mhm.
we put that in the notes. I'm sure you're only delivering in a small area of Saratoga Springs because it's.
Yes and no.
Oh,
So
okay.
I am doing the bike delivery within the city limits because
Okay.
it's pretty large town.
Right.
So the bike delivery is within city limits, and I am gonna sneak a couple in down by the lake as well because it's nice to ride down there. So why not? And then I grew up in Kingston, so in the Hudson Valley, and I had a lot of family members that were like, "Oh, are you ever going to come down here? Are you ever going to bring anything?" And I got so sick of them asking that I actually set up a subscription just for Kingston. So I will, it's 6 bouquets over like a 12-week period, and or four bouquets over an 8-week period. Sorry. And I will be bringing those down and making it a trip to see my family too. So everyone's still down there. And yeah.
Well, it's always nice to be able to work things together. Um, I always say when I come up to Saratoga Springs, yes, it may be to see my brother and sister-in-law and now his kids, but I always find some work to do while I'm up there as well. And the next time we come up, obviously, I've got to come out and see all your
Yes,
cultivation. That would be so exciting.
please, please do.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and again, when I saw that picture, I kept thinking, boy, should I have stayed in the plant business? But now I'm glad I didn't because at least in this area, indoor plants are not flourishing. It's not the big thing anymore. So I probably would have gone broke, and that's no fun. So I enjoyed doing plants for myself, keeping my garden looking pretty, using my compost to make it grow like crazy. And again, thank you so much for joining us. I'll put a picture of your
Thank
delivery
you.
bike out there. And
Thanks.
I want to encourage everybody, get up to Saratoga Springs. It's now getting safer to travel. It's beautiful
Yes.
up there. This summer you can go watch the horses race if that's what you
Mhm.
choose, or a lot of historical places too to visit. So uh,
Absolutely.
we absolutely love it. And then you can buy some flowers.
Yes.
I think that would be a
Yes,
great
please.
idea. And when you start your YouTube channel, let me know and we'll
I
connect
will.
to it and share it with our listeners. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you see my family this weekend, say hi for me.
I will.
All right. Take care, hon. Bye bye
You
now.
too. Bye-bye.